Hi, I'm Jeremiah Gibbs. I'm the Camino Guide, and today we're going to be talking about how to decide on shoes for Camino de Santiago. This is a pretty important part of your pilgrimage success, and we're going to talk about all the different options that you have, and then specifically at the end, I'm going to talk about things that you need to think about when you're in the shoe store. So, stick around for the end for that information. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Other people will be able to find it that way, and hopefully you will be able to get some good value from what we're talking about today. First thing I want to talk about is some of the factors that are going to be really critical for making shoe decisions for Camino, because Camino is a bit different than some other things that you might compare it to. And so I want to get a good sense of what really is going to be the most critical for decisions about Camino de Santiago. The first thing to think about is the distances that you're going to walk on Camino. Typical 13, 15, 17, sometimes more than 20 miles a day that pilgrims walk on Camino. That's much longer distances than you might expect on like a hiking trail like the Appalachian Trail or Pacific Coast Trail, something like that, where distances of more like 10 or 12 or 14 miles are more typical. So you're going to be walking long distances because the terrain is so much easier than some of these other hikes. It's not like those other hikes with regard to distances. And so you're going to need to think about that within your shoe decision. These paths are going to be significantly better improved paths than what you might see on a typical wilderness hike. So a lot of times you'll be walking on street. A lot of times you'll be walking on just dirt road. And other times you will be off-road on trails with rocks and things like that. So all of those terrains are relevant for Camino, but for sure these are better, more improved paths than what would be typical on a wilderness hike. So there's going to be less need for stability and that kind of a thing than you would on one of those typical wilderness hikes. The second factor that's really important for deciding on shoes is that dry feet are key to preventing blisters. There's going to be two things that are important for preventing blisters. The first one is that your feet remain dry. Now, there's a couple factors at the end I'm going to talk about whether you choose waterproof shoes or not, but just remember that dry feet equals fewer blisters. So that's an important factor in how you make decisions here. The second thing is that reducing movement in your shoe, the movement inside the shoe, is also going to reduce blisters. So those two factors, reducing movement inside the shoe and rubbing and things like that, and reducing your moisture in your feet, are the two key factors to reducing blisters. And most people on Camino experience at least some blisters. So preventing that is going to be a key factor in your shoe decision. And then the last thing I already mentioned, the stability of the paths, the improved paths means that there's less need for stability. It's not that there's no need for stability. You are going to be walking off-road, so there is some need for stability, and so you need to keep that in mind. But it is less of a concern than it's going to be for some other pilgrimage paths. Now, I should say that my advice is going to be specific to Camino Frances. Camino Frances is a significantly more improved route than some of the other routes. So that is, you're going to be on roads more, you're going to be on improved trails more, and things like that. And so I've not walked the other Camino paths. I've walked Camino Frances many times, but I've not walked the other Camino paths, so I don't know how primitive they are and so on. So you might get some feedback from others about what that's going to look like, so that you can make the best decision for your footwear. Before we get started, I'm going to put links to all of the shoes that I talk about in the description. If you would click those links, those are affiliate links from Amazon. That'll give me just a couple of percentage points back, and doesn't cost you anything. So that's a great way to support what I'm doing here with the videos, and I would appreciate if you use those Amazon links, and they're quick reference for you to be able to get to those shoes as well. Now, I'm going to suggest that there are three main choices that you're going to make for Camino de Santiago. I'm going to talk about all three of them in just a moment. The one that I'm going to suggest that you don't choose is what we might think of as a typical hiking boot, like a kind of full leather, heavyweight hiking boot, which there are going to be plenty of people on Camino that have those. You certainly can be successful on Camino with them. And in fact, I would suggest that most European folks, so French or Germans, probably Italians as well, that we see a lot of them on Camino. Many of them are wearing hiking boots, big, heavy hiking boots. And many of them love them. I would say that of most of the people that have had foot problems on the 90 pilgrims that have been on Camino with me, most of the people that have had foot problems have been wearing some sort of a boot. Now, there's two factors that may be there. One of them would just simply be that probably my pilgrims did not take enough time to break in their boots, and that makes a big difference with a boot. A boot requires more break-in time, and I suspect that a fair number of the people that go with me, because they're not common hikers, they probably are more likely to be wearing a boot that's not broken in. The second factor is that the boots are just heavier and stiffer. And when you're walking really long distances, that often is going to be more problematic for blisters and things like that. Now, I was in the Marine Corps. We walked, dozens of miles sometimes in a day. We might walk 20 miles in a day or 30 miles in a day even for various exercises. And we did that all in boots, and we did it on concrete and on paths, trails, all kinds of things. So certainly you could walk Camino de Santiago in big, heavy boots and be successful. But most of the people that I've seen have problems have been wearing boots. I do not recommend them. I don't think they're necessary for Camino de Santiago. What I am going to recommend are three main choices. The first one is going to be the heaviest of those choices, and that's going to be a hiking shoe. Now, an example of the hiking shoe that I have today is one of the most popular on Camino and on other sort of trail hikes and so on. This is a Moab Ventilator. And the Moab Ventilator, like I said, is one of the most popular shoes. You'll see that the upper is built like a tennis shoe, so that the upper would be typical for a tennis shoe. It's fairly lightweight. It's going to ventilate pretty well, and they do not need broken in typically. Now, where a hiking shoe is different from something like a tennis shoe is going to be in the sole. So you can actually see this one is labeled as a Vibram sole, and these Vibram soles are much, much stiffer. This is the same material that you would expect in a hiking boot sole. So this is a little bit like having a tennis shoe upper with a boot lower. That's the way that I like to think about hiking shoes. So I think lots of people have used these, have been very successful with them. They do provide a lot of stability in the foot. They don't have as much flex as other options that we're going to talk about. Usually they have pretty good toe protection. I don't think the Moab Ventilator has great toe protection compared to some others, but because this is pretty stiff, I didn't have any problem with toe protection. They have a fairly wide toe box on the Moab Ventilator. I think this is a good shoe. There are plenty of other hiking shoes on the market, and I think those are going to be a good choice for you as kind of the more stable option. They're going to have less flex in your foot, and generally speaking, that's going to be a good choice for a trip like Camino de Santiago. Now, I will say that for me, I think I had too much movement inside the Moab Ventilator. That shoe was entirely unsuccessful for me for pilgrimage. I got a lot of blisters when I wore them on Camino and even on my practice hikes. So that shoe, I wear these shoes all the time, actually, casually, but they were not a good choice for me for Camino, but I know there's lots of people that they're great for. Now, my winner 100 times over for Camino de Santiago, and the shoe that I most often recommend, is to get a trail running shoe. Now, a trail runner shoe is going to be a typical running shoe top. It's going to have a fairly typical tennis shoe or running shoe tread. Sole. But the only difference is going to be is that the tread on a trail runner is going to be quite a bit more aggressive than it will be on a typical tennis shoe. I have had incredible success with trail runners like these, for me and for many others. I wear this shoe. I've bought this shoe multiple times. It's my favorite, and I wear it on pretty much all of my Caminos now. I just go and buy the same shoe over and over again. This is called the Salomon XA Pro 3D. Salomon XA Pro 3D. And I think there's multiple reasons that I like it. One of them, it's also available in wide sizes. So this is one of my wide sizes. This is a typical the narrow size. I like this particular shoe primarily because it's available in wide sizes. I think some of the advantages of trail runners are going to be, first of all, they're very lightweight. They do have some good tread when you're on rocks, slick rocks, or in the mud or something like that. So they are going to be good in those regards. But they also are going to be super well ventilated. They're going to dry out really fast, just like a good running shoe would. And they are not going to need any time to break in. So from the very first day, they're going to be comfortable. They're not going to cause blisters for those reasons either. I have had particular luck with the Salomon running shoes. And here I'm talking about across the 90 pilgrims that I've been on Camino with. I've had really great luck with Salomon. You can be successful with lots of different shoes. That's not really the issue. But I will say that over across the whole of the pilgrims that I've had with me, Salomon's have done by far the best as far as blister problems and things like that. I think there's probably a couple reasons why they may be better. One, they're just really well ventilated, which certainly is going to help. The other thing that's really Salomon is different, not all Salomons, but a lot of them have these speed laces, and the speed lace is very thin, and it moves very freely, so the shoe can be tight but still get quite a bit of movement across here without rubbing. And I think the freedom to have that movement in a shoe that's fairly tight is probably why this shoe does so well. There are going to be different sort of weights, if you will, to the sole. This is a different Salomon running trail runner. You'll notice that the sole on this one is quite a bit lighter. The material across here is going to be better ventilated. And so this is actually a shoe that I wear when I'm not on Camino. This is like a shoe that I would just wear around town, or actually I bought it for walking my practice hikes where I often am walking on improved streets. So I probably would not choose this one on Camino because, first of all, the sole's not as stiff as the XA Pro 3D, which I was holding before, but also because you'll see that there's not a lot of toe protection on this shoe in the way that there is on this shoe. So this shoe has quite a bit of toe protection, and that's going to be important when you bang your feet on rocks and things like that, so that you don't really hurt yourself when you're going across those rough terrains. Now, the last option that I'm going to recommend for Camino is going to be a hiking sandal. And here, we could mean a lot of different things by hiking sandal, but really what I mean is a sandal that is going to have a fairly substantial arch support. This one is a Vionic sandal. I buy these because I have plantar fasciitis, and so these are made specifically for persons with plantar fasciitis. But actually, many hiking sandals are going to have fairly good arch support. That's one of the things that's going to be different for hiking sandals as to some other sandals that you might choose, is that the arch support is key here. You do not want to have a sandal that's super flat in the arch, because you are going to be really pushing your feet, and you need to be able to have some arch support there for their strength, and also the heel cup begins to create some stability there. Sandals are a pretty popular option on Camino. I think there's a number of different reasons that's the case. You might see ones from Tiva or Keen or Chaco are some of the most popular ones. I think there's a number of reasons that that's the case. One is they often are quite lightweight, although if you get something like the Chacos, which have the most substantial sole, those are going to be fairly heavy. In fact, I would say my Chacos approach the weight of my trail runners, maybe even heavier than some of my trail runners. So I don't actually wear the Chacos on Camino because they are quite heavy, and they don't then give me the advantage of what a sandal would. So I don't choose those. But sandals, generally speaking, are going to be lighter weight, which is certainly going to be an advantage in walking. They also are going to be very well ventilated, obviously, and ventilation is key to keeping your feet dry. Remember, dry is a key here. Now, because it's also essential that we not have a lot of movement. Remember, because movement and dry feet and stable movement are going to be keys to preventing blisters. Most people that wear sandals wear them with socks on Camino, which I know looks stupid. Nobody likes the appearance of it, but the sock, even a thin sock, is going to prevent that sandal from rubbing your foot in the same place over and over again. And lots of folks think that wearing socks with their sandals is better when they're on pilgrimage, and I think I would tend to agree with that. So a few of the advantages of the sandal: first of all, obviously ventilation, lightweight. I already mentioned that. The other advantage is that because your foot is going to have freedom in front of it, you're not going to bang your toes into the front of the shoe when you're going downhill. And that's a pretty big problem for losing toenails and having your toenails go black and things like that, is that your feet are contacting the front of the shoe. That's not going to happen at all with a trail run, with a sandal, and I think that's a pretty good advantage. Some of the disadvantages for trail runners is certainly going to be often not a lot of toe protection. This sandal has almost no toe protection at all. So for banging your toes into rocks and things like that, you could really hurt your toe pretty bad that way, hurt your foot pretty bad that way. They also are not going to have a lot of lateral support this way. So if you don't have particularly strong ankles or something like that, then there's not a lot of lateral support. There is going to be oftentimes a good heel cup and some arch support, so you have some lateral support, but on really rough terrain you may find that your foot is moving around quite a lot, and if you don't have a healthy strong foot, then that can cause some injuries to ankles and things like that as well. If you're somebody who really loves sandals, and I encourage you, just comment below and tell other people why you love the sandals, because there's plenty of people out there who love them. I just have not been particularly successful with them, but I know lots of people really love hiking with sandals. So those are really the three recommendations that I can sort of wholeheartedly give to you. There are going to be a couple of things I want to suggest to you when you go and make shoe purchases that you want to kind of keep in mind. The first one is, I definitely think everyone should buy one whole size larger than you would normally wear in a shoe. Your feet are going to swell, first of all. Second of all, you are going to have a lot of movement going down into the shoe when you're going downhill. In fact, some shoe stores will have some things like fake rocks and so on in the store, so you can kind of test what that will feel like when you're going downhill. But that downhill impact on a shoe can be really problematic, and so having a lot of room in the toe is going to be important for that. So I definitely want to recommend that step up, especially as your feet begin to swell and begin to flatten out after walking many miles. The next decision that you're going to need to make is about whether you want to wear waterproof shoes. So shoes like this Moab Ventilator are available in a waterproof version. The XA Pro 3D, I believe, is also available in a Gore-Tex waterproof version. If not, Solomon certainly has other shoes that are available in the Gore-Tex version. Remember that one of the keys here is that you want to keep your feet dry if you want to prevent blisters. That may make you think, I want Gore-Tex. That's what it made me think. I want Gore-Tex to keep my feet dry. What I found out is that because my feet sweat a lot, I sweat a lot, the Gore-Tex was keeping the moisture in and therefore was giving me blisters really, really bad. So for me, Gore-Tex was a terrible choice. For others, if your feet don't sweat a lot, then the Gore-Tex will keep the water and the moisture out that might be in there from rain or from dew or whatever, that kind of thing. So the Gore-Tex, you have to make a decision based on really, I think, how much you think your feet sweat. Are they likely to be holding the moisture in so that your feet are wetter, or are they likely to be holding the moisture from rain and so on out? But the Gore-Tex decision really is different for each person, but remember that your goal is to keep your feet dry, and so that's one of the things you would think about with regard to Gore-Tex. One other decisions whenever you're purchasing shoe that I would recommend. Some people have become very big fans of the zero lift shoes. That is a sole that is basically more like walking on flat ground without a shoe on. The zero lift. Those. Many people think that they're healthier for your foot and so on. That may very well be true. I often go on Camino de Santiago with folks who are physical therapists. I take physical therapists with me because I'm a part of a faculty at a university, and so oftentimes I can get a faculty person from physical therapy to go with me. They will often say to folks, the zero lift shoe is only a good idea if you're going to practice with it, if you're going to wear it a lot, because part of the problem is for most of us, the shoes that we wear every day have trained us to walk with a shoe that has a lift. And so we are used to walking that way. Our walking gait has formed around that. And so unless you're going to go out and practice with that shoe, spend a lot of time on it, allowing the other muscles in your foot that have atrophied because we don't use zero lift, then you're going to need to go out and spend some time with those shoes and wear them. A couple of folks that decided to wear those, that just wore them in their everyday life, wore them, to everyday activities for a while, and that helped their feet to acclimate. But if you really want to think about that before you go for the zero lift, just because it's kind of a trendy option right now. And the last thing that I want to suggest is I think everyone should get should think about high quality insoles. This is an insole from Superfeet that has great arch support, has kind of a heavy bottom, not heavy, but a stiff bottom to provide lots of support. I'm going to have a different episode to talk about how you choose insoles, because I think they're a great choice. But one of the things to keep in mind is that you may want to take the insoles with you when you try on shoes in the shoe store. So because that insole takes up quite a bit more space probably than the factory insole, so you might want to purchase insoles and decide on an insole and then take it with you when you go and get your shoes sized. Hopefully that's some good advice on how to make decisions on a shoe, and definitely, if you have questions, you can throw those in the comments, and I and others will speak up and give some advice from our own experiences. If you like this video, please click the like button so that others will find this content too, and subscribe to the channel if you want more information on gear reviews, if you'd like information on planning, logistics, or if you would like to see videos about kind of the spirituality of pilgrimage. I make videos on all that, and certainly hope that you'll subscribe and come back often. Buen Camino.